This we call the Edge sessions, and basically the idea is that there's a professor and 4, 2, 3 people jamming along. So this is a jam session. I think it is a fantastic session. You've been in some of the prior sessions where we really talk about innovation and the trends that are going to change real estate. And in this session, we're really going to talk about big data and people who use big data and smart buildings and smarter people who use them. So we have a very, very distinguished, amazing, spectacular panel, people who are really working at the forefront of these issues. And I think it's really well balanced because we have a startup working on parking, using mining parking data. We have established property owner working to make buildings smarter and more efficient. We've got a startup in the environment of zoning and a person who's not only a startup entrepreneur, but also a professor at MIT. And we've got a hospitality example of how can you can use data to actually follow customers and customer satisfaction. So with that, let's get started. And we're gonna work this way. In this session, my rules of engagement were the following. I'll tell them, why don't you tell us about your case study? I think it's important, we can talk about it, but it's really cool and important for us to see what you're doing so we can learn. So we're gonna start with about 5 to 7 minute presentation. They're gonna tell us what they do. So that takes us to about 30 minutes, and then I'm gonna take them for about 20 minutes of questions, and then I'll open to you guys and ask you whether you wanna participate too. With that, we're gonna start with Wen Sang, who's actually the CEO of SmartKey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wen, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of SmartKey. So I was originally born and raised in China and came to the States 2010 to do my PhD at MIT. At the time, trained as an automotive engineer. Second year, I got to Cambridge, got a little bumpy Saturn, $2,000. Extremely excited and driving around. Not too long, just couldn't find a parking space. Found myself turtling around, couldn't find a parking space. So I decided to look into the problem just like any MIT student. And you know what? There are actually plenty of consumer apps being built out, but after 5, 10 years of efforts, the landscape has not changed. People are still sticking their head out of the window and circling around, visually searching for parking. So when I looked deeper into the problem, a gold mine showed up. Essentially, we found the fundamental gap is really not in the consumer side, because we all care about the problem, we all want to get solved, but the management side of the parking world, even today, is still kind of sort of in the Stone Age in a way, that one of our earliest clients makes about $140 million out of their parking operations every year, and they have 6 people full-time manually count cars every day just to understand occupancy. That is the status quo of the industry. And we believe that is not how things should be done in the 21st century. And we believe there is an opportunity there. So after certain, let's say, initial research, we realized that additional $5 to $10 billion of value could actually be recouped or generated from this industry, which is a $30 billion industry, if there is digitization, if there is intelligence, and if there is full leverage of the data that has already been generated, millions of transaction data been generated every day. So started SmartKey after my graduation, and obviously went to the West Coast for the venture money. And now the way we work is we talk with all kinds of parking equipment on site from thousands of locations, and real-time stream out all the transaction data, millions of transaction data, and push it up to the AWS and crunch the high-level insights to help the people who ever own or manage parking assets to make data-driven decisions and create success out of their business. So we work with clients in the commercial real estate world, in the municipal governments world, in the parking operators world, and some of the simple examples could be really that, for example, Brookfield is one of our clients, and for one of the locations we've identified conventionally when it comes to staffing the valet tenants. Lots of times people base that off how many cars are in the garage. But what happens is in the morning and in the evening, when there are lots of activity, entry and exit, there were only 5 people there. But in the noon, when majority of cars are sitting there, the garage is full, nothing's happening, 20 people are sitting there playing their phone. So that doesn't make much of a sense from a labor perspective. And we were able to enable the client to identify the opportunity to shift the work, the staff shifts, and make much better decisions of their business. And when it comes to cities, lots of times cities' job is to make good parking policy to enable much better resident or visitor satisfaction. But to do that, they need to convince the city council for parking policies. And without data, they couldn't do that. They would hire parking consultants, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to come up with a thick parking study, but the city council rarely buys in because where's my data? And we enable them to get the real-time and aggregate comprehensive understanding of the actual parking demand and much faster decision-making. When it comes to operators or even real estate owners, the example of Premier Parking was for one small surface lot, they were able to identify opportunity to increase the oversell ratio from 120% to 150% for the monthly parkers. It's essentially opportunity for more people to benefit from this one piece of asset, and it was $400,000 of NOI for that small lot instantly. And now we're generating value in a similar way to many, many other clients. So 3.5 years in, we're now working with clients in different sectors, different industries. There are private side of owners and investors, public side of owners and investors, and operators, and industry adoption has exceeded our expectation and still growing really rapidly. Now we're live in more than 2,000 sites, and a lot of industry leaders are absolutely digging in on this. So ultimately, we believe in that power of the parking data goes beyond parking. What we see is not only once when we solve the supply side of the problem, we can take this piece of information and open up the doors to any consumer applications like Google Maps, Apple Maps, ways that wanted to loop in this parking information for the automated consumer experience. But when it comes to real estate development, investment, city urban planning policy making, finance industry needs, the data from this industry would have so many implications that it can be leveraged all over the across industries. So at last, I wanted to share a very short 2-minute video about a success case study we had with City of Aspen.
It's time to move from the intuition economy to the information economy in parking. And in order to do so, you need to make decisions with data. SmartKey is changing the way cities, operators, and owners are using their data. SmartKey's dashboard allows parking professionals to manage their entire parking operation from a single dashboard.
I can sit at my desk and look at my SmartKey dashboard. In the past, we had no idea what our busiest hour of the day of parking was. We always assumed it was between noon and 1. What we found out with the SmartKey information was that 2 o'clock was our busiest hour every day of the week.
Not only can SmartKey's dashboard tell you about occupancy levels, it can give you an instant window into parking durations and revenue. You can also track mobile adoption and start to understand the effectiveness of the policies in place.
One of our goals was to increase turnover in the downtown core of cars parking. Before SmartKey, we had no idea how long people were parking for. Now we know exactly how many people are paying for 1 hour, 2 hours, and 3 hours. We'll use that information moving forward as we look at parking in the city of Aspen.
SmartKey allows parking authorities to communicate better with City Council, since we're able to display clear and simple visualized data.
In the past, when I went to City Council and gave my ideas about what I wanted to do for parking, they come back and say, show me the data. Well, I couldn't do that. Now with SmartKey's dashboard and the information I get from them daily, I have the ability to show City Council the information both graphically and financially on what works for Aspen.
Using SmartKey to leverage real-time data and predictive analysis allows any municipality, operator, university, or owner to make informed decisions, institute smarter pricing, and practice better inventory allocation that result in improving the performance of your parking operation.
Last summer, City Council approved a 50% increase in parking prices in the downtown core. The results of that were an 88% occupancy level in the core, which was far better than expected. And even though revenue is not important to us, we ended up with a 28% increase of revenue for the summer of 2016.
Why SmartKey? Instant access to your parking data, better decision making, and more revenue. It's time to move from the intuition economy to the information economy in parking. It's time to move from the intuition economy to the information economy in parking.
Yeah, so one thing that Mitch didn't mention was actually because of this policy change, the turnover rate of the downtown business has become so much better that there was a 20% of increase of the total business volume in the downtown core, which was absolutely opposite of what the merchants expected before, because they were worrying about if you increase the on-street parking price, then no one's going to come to my shop. That's completely not the case. A lot more people, a lot more foot traffic, and the turnover rate was high to support the business growth. So that was the case. Thank you very much. I'm Wen with SmartKey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's amazing. It's not only about smart buildings, but it's really about smart parking. Parkings are talking to us and telling us their stories. Let me move it to smart buildings and to make buildings much more customer-driven. Lachlan Macquarie's real experience at Oxford Properties doing so.
Thank you very much. My name is Lachlan Macquarie. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate Management for Oxford Properties. Oxford is the real estate investment arm of OMERS Pension Plan in Canada. It's a $100 billion pension fund, and Oxford is a $50 billion real estate company with locations in Canada, the US, and the UK, and elsewhere in Europe. In Boston, we have approximately 5 million square feet of commercial office, which in the short period of 3 years makes us the second biggest commercial landlord in Boston. And we have been investing in smart technology and the process of evolving our portfolio for the past 5-6 years. And so when we started to think about what the future held for Oxford, we started to think about the evolution of what was coming upon us. And that's, we saw three fundamental areas of change. One is around technology and automation, one was around urban densification, and one was around customer expectations. And all three of those things were happening and coming at us at a rapid succession. And so we started very traditionally. We started looking at, from a portfolio perspective, what sort of a framework should we adopt as we think about what's going to take to turn a traditional operating platform of disparate systems of people of a variety of skill sets in our environment and customers who have evolving expectations. So we started with a fundamental framework, and that framework really identified what we wanted to accomplish, whether that was a differentiated experience or ultimately a brand recognition or operational effectiveness. And we started to say, well, how would we do that? And we believed that we had to apply a broad perspective of policy and visibility and control across our portfolio, or else we would be trying to solve the problem one part at a time. And if you've ever bought a part from a car dealership, you know that assembling a car from a service center is not the best and most effective way to build a car. So we started to think about all the different elements of doing that. And we knew that the challenge we faced was proprietary systems across all of our platforms. And so we began to identify what is it we needed to get from these systems, whether they're open or converged or normalized data, so we can ultimately start to integrate them. And that's been a huge challenge and a huge opportunity for us as it relates to how we're going to impact experience of occupiers and customers, how we're going to drive efficiency in our platform, and how we're going to evolve and innovate on technology. And so we've evolved our technology or our perspective over the past 5 years. And so where we sit today, I would say, is focusing on two core areas. One is on the customer experience. And so what is it that the customer ultimately needs in our environment to be able to stay and come and be attracted to our buildings and portfolio? And what is it we can do within our platform to drive operational efficiencies? And so candidly, we thought we could do differentiation from a customer experience first. The reality of that was that there were no platforms, no technologies that meaningfully we could deploy that we could do cost effectively with scale. And so we ultimately started in the realm of efficiencies. And so I'll start at efficiencies, lowering operating costs, extending the life of our assets, avoiding costs in the future, and enabling our employees to do things in our spaces better, faster, and cheaper. Where we sit today is understanding what's the perspective of our customer. And so if we think about the customer and the building system and how they're linked, if we can satisfy customer needs and we can link that to the building operating system or the ecosystem which our buildings run, ultimately we can deliver both things. And so today, our vision is understanding how can we enable productivity of customers? How can we meet and exceed the expectations of new tenants as they come in, or tenants who wish to stay in our portfolio? How can we create individual transactions that are simple and joyful and create an experience that our customers can remember? And how can we create a brand that keeps and attracts and retains our customers in the future? So what does SMART mean for Oxford? And so on the left-hand side of the screen, it anticipates my customer needs. It delivers an experience that integrates surprise or joy or ease. It prevents problems from occurring and becoming visible to the customer. It recognizes decline in our building performance, and it optimizes the state and the predictable environment which we can operate. These are our ambitions from an operations perspective. And we invest in these because ultimately we know that if we can ensure the best document experience, we get to keep that customer. And the cost of attracting a tenant is significantly higher than the cost of keeping a tenant. And if we can deliver operational savings to a customer, ultimately we get a better and a longer relationship. And we are in the business of making money. If we can lower your operating costs, we can raise your rent. Which is a meaningful strategy as we deliver pension dollars to 480,000 pensioners in Ontario. We believe that we can use technology to improve safety, and safety for both our customers and safety for our operators. And we believe that when we start to think about these things and we do it with a scale approach, we can do it much more cost effectively and reduce duplication of effort and streamline the focuses of our operating teams. So bringing all these things together around sustainability and utilization and productivity, and if we could take the data and do something with that, that's what we really wanted to do. And so along the way, I picked up on this slide, and I thought it was really interesting. We started from an efficiency perspective, but if you read this quote, it's really a much more powerful quote, and it doesn't speak to efficiency. It speaks to addressing the needs of human challenges of productivity, innovation, and well-being. And that's what we have to think about. We started thinking like engineers, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that's the system, that's the capabilities our operators had. But when we start to think about the customer, and if we can change the environment in which they operate, that's where we think the success is going to be. And if we can solve the customer needs, we're going to pull the building systems forward. And so some of the benefits of SMART in our portfolio, and I'll give you some examples, productivity and experience. At our head office in Toronto, on the 23rd floor where I sit, I have personal control of my lights, of my HVAC, and a virtual access card. So I can personally change the temperature on the spot and my light, and guess what? When we turn that on for one floor, 100 people lowered their lights. And 100 people lowered the cost of operations. And so it's not perfect yet. It's darker than it should be in most places, and it's not a very democratic. If you change it, and you change it from next, and guess what? I'm under your lighting level. But as we think about that experience and experience like comfy and things like that, giving customers productivity tools actually changes the way we operate the buildings. And if we can do that with data, it's perfect. Cost control for our engineers. If we can give, on the 23rd floor in the same building, EY Tower, a 1 million square foot building, LEED Platinum, brand new, our operators have mobile first applications that can run around the building and do and see things that impact the comfort of that building anywhere they want to be on a platform that's comfortable to them. That's meaningful. That means we can take a service opportunity and change it into a wow moment. We can sit in front of a customer and say, let me just grab this on the system. Let me take a look at this temperature on the spot with you and solve that problem on the spot. That's a meaningful interaction. And that's a brand opportunity for us to keep that customer. We can do, I give an example of the Edge in Amsterdam. I know that Deloitte, when I was talking with them in Amsterdam, said that they had 4 times the number of applications come to that location than any other Deloitte location in the world. And so if I can, as a landlord, provide the power or the platform to do that for you, my customer, that's impressive. That's changing productivity for a customer. Sustainability at Waterpark Place in Toronto, we have an example of a LEED Platinum building, brand new construction, again, 1 million square feet. We took the energy intensity of that building down by 25% against its design levels through visualization of energy and the components of our engineers being able to control that building differently. So we can deliver those operational savings. And guess what? Technology costs aren't getting cheaper. And they're not getting less technology in our building. So if we can take the controllable aspects of it, like energy, we get to then invest in stuff that makes an experience. And finally, brand alignment. We were able to successfully take Cisco in an environment that was not a networked environment to an environment that we could deliver their product in front of their customers, and that changed their perspective. In our Canadian assets, in office and retail today, I'm going to say it's about 30 million square feet. We have 100% of them that have integrated backbones, cyber-connected security strategies, managed networks. 10 of them have fault detection platforms. We're changing the environment of our portfolio through our focus on an outcome. And so smart buildings are buildings that gather information differently, that interact with the customer, that take the physical form differently, or that change the way we use the information to change the customer. And we're focusing today really on those two elements, the customer and the efficiency. And the challenge, of course, has been that in the absence of common systems, we have proprietary systems. And those proprietary systems limit the ability for us to integrate. I can print a document in our office in London from my computer in this building today. Why can't I control something around the corner? So it's amazing if we think about the technology that enables the phone systems, the telephones that we use today, why can't our buildings do the same thing? And it really is a struggle from a proprietary nature of building systems that we have to get overcome. And we have to have a building ecosystem ultimately to be able to deliver the experiences consistently. And we're looking to build a customer application, and that customer application has to do something useful. It just can't be content. It can't be a discount to the food court. It can't be a discount to the provider or the retailer in the lobby. And so we have to think about how do we meaningfully drive productivity to our customers, and not just what is available to today. And that's a challenge that we all face. And Hunter Adelaide, where I work, EY Tower is the newest example of us having an ecosystem. We have a platform that enables control and experience. And we can turn on features as we have time and money and return to make sense for our customers. So here's a typical example of what's in a smart building from an Oxford perspective. And we have elements of this in many of our buildings, not all of them and not all of them concurrently, but integrated base building networks, operational controls platforms of visualization. We have fault detection, predicting information to optimize comfort in many of our buildings today. We focus on how do we use Wi-Fi, DAS, cellular, digital communications, RFID, so that we can actually change the experience. Cybersecurity is a space that evolved rapidly for us. And as we launched all these networks everywhere, we realized that the network themselves was going to enable us to migrate systems onto that. And ultimately, those migrated systems, we can now control them much more proactively, and we'd protect, from a risk perspective, our investment and our reputation. Mobile-first applications, location-based tracking. We do 100% of our shopping centers in Canada have mobile-based tracking. So if you walk into a shopping center in Yorkdale and Toronto, it knows, it doesn't know who you are unless you opt in from social Wi-Fi, but it knows where you went, how long you spent there, how long you went to the food court, how long you spent at Victoria's Secret, did you go and cross-sell at Nordstrom's? And so we take that information and we use that from a leasing perspective to enable a better experience from our customers, the Nordstrom's of the world, the Victoria's Secrets of the world, and then we think about how do we enable the labor efficiencies with the security and the cleaning. Robotic applications, we have robots cleaning our shopping center floors. We had a robot circulating through the parking lot of one of our shopping centers looking at crime and issues, and so it's really interesting as we test that. Today our focus is really about big data. We're looking at a data lake perspective and looking at integrating all of our buildings across that environment. We spend a significant amount of time understanding cybersecurity and applying a NIST framework across that platform. Personal control. How do we take personal controls and make that a meaningful element of our customer experience? Optimization through fault detection, and really using sensors and data in a new and different way. So doing this across ultimately 50 million feet will be a challenge for us and has been a challenge. And so we're working together with our sites in different regions, like here in Boston, to understand what are their needs. What are the needs of their particular assets and their particular markets? We do know that from today's research that smart buildings, connected buildings, green buildings can drive positive return incremental to what exists otherwise. And so if we can connect that to the local markets, the local portfolios, we can ultimately do what we're supposed to do for the pensioners of Ontario. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's really amazing what Oxford is doing, not only in terms of the scale, but also in terms of the applicability and how many things you guys are doing at the same time. So let's move it to Sarah Williams, and that's one of the arenas where you wouldn't expect a lot of innovation, zoning and planning. You know, we've talked about this in other sessions, how notoriously inefficient the zoning and planning process can be. But I think it's time to bring data to bear into these processes too, and we're going to see how New Startup is doing it.
Great. Hi, everybody. So So I just want to start by introducing myself a bit. First, as Albert said, I'm not just a startup founder, but I also run a research lab here. So I run something called the Civic Data Design Lab. Oh, is this not full screen mode? Sorry. Yeah. Yes, perfect. Okay. I run something called the Civic Data Design Lab. And really, I believe big data will not change the world unless it's collected and synthesized into tools that have a public benefit, which we just saw some of those tools just before. And so I translate data that I often scrape from social media sites and websites to kind of visualize policy change. So this is data I scraped from Foursquare that allowed, and Facebook, and allowed me to understand population flows at every time of the day. And then I looked at that against office and retail rents, and really, kind of there's a relationship between social media and high rent values, which has a lot to do with the way that social media is used. But what I really want to talk to you today about is Envelope, which is a startup I co-founded. It really started out of a partnership I had with Shop Architects. And I had done a lot of data visualization for Shop Architects over the years. One of the things that we kind of hatched up is, can we some way automate how a building envelope is developed in New York City? How many people here work in New York City real estate? A few of you. The building envelope is one of the most important aspects in New York City because it's very specific to the lot that you're on. So every lot in New York City has pretty much a different kind of building envelope. So Envelope uses big data, a zoning rules engine, spatial modeling, and 3D visualization to show development potential lot by lot across New York City. And really, it started from this 4,000-page zoning resolution, which is how you figure out what you can build on each lot. And typically, when a developer works in New York City, and those people who are working in New York City know this, you hire an architect or you hire a land use attorney to kind of go through this zoning resolution and give you a massing. And this can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for a site. We digitized all of the zoning rules and created this zoning rule engine. So basically, the product is based on data. This is a little bit different, and this is data that we created ourselves using automation and computational processes from existing open data that was available from the city. A lot of the city's open data actually had some inaccuracies, so we actually use computational processes to fix those inaccuracies as well. To be able to visualize your building envelope. So this is a screenshot of the product. You can pick your different uses and you can see the actual envelope. You can see it within the context of other sites. You can see if you change the floor height, how does it change your zoning? Can you get air rights from additional buildings? So one of the things that we're doing right now is actually creating a project that allows you to search, not only visualize your zoning envelope, but search based on your zoning parameters. So now that we have all of these zoning parameters digitized, we can actually ask questions like, how can we locate 200 to 500 of mixed-use development rights available in Chelsea right now? So in this case, I can pick in my envelope the tool that allows you to figure out those parameters. So here you can see I selected those. Allowable or openly available ZFA, and this means that that site is underbuilt currently. I can pick, so this is the results, the blue areas. Then I can pick the neighborhood that I'm interested in. I want to look at Chelsea. I also can pick specific kinds of current uses. So I'm looking for potential for grocery stores, and it highlights a specific lot. So this lot has an allowable ZFA of close to 220,000 square feet, and I can see what available zoning rights are in the lots next to this particular lot. And then you can actually expand the lot and see if you have different kinds of uses that are allowed on this site, what might you be able to do? So right now, this is a totally commercial build out, although it could be a residential build out if you wanted it to be. And then you can see that there are rights that you can get from adjacent lots that you could put onto this lot. So then you can actually visualize the current lot as it is, and look at these additional lots next to it. So here we have lot 49 and lot 741. We can see that we have an existing ZFA of close to 200,000, but we could actually, we have a potential to add a lot more than that. Then you are able to look at the output through a search report, and then you can move into our more traditional product, which then allows you to begin to mass this site. So this would be the site visualized as it is, which is totally commercial. This is what would happen if you change your use to a mix of commercial residential, or maybe 3 floors commercial residential. How much extra space or square footage can you get? You can change your floor height to add an additional floor and see the square footages, and then you can begin to add your bonuses. So I have a bonus here. I'm actually able to get an additional floors. I can acquire development rights from my neighbor, which will allow me to get yet an additional floor. Here we have a number of different developments on the block that have additional rights, which then I can begin to mass my overall potential just on this block itself. So now we've actually maxed out our zoning from this block, looking at all of the variable air rights in the areas and proximities around this site itself. We also just added this, which is super exciting. You can have dormers on this particular site, so it actually can give you an additional FAR. And so we just added this feature, which allows you to put those dormers in as well. You can run a number of different scenarios. I just picked 2 lots. Here we're getting a whole block. How does that look? And really, what I just want to say is that this wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a lot of the data that we created, but a lot of the openly available data from the city. So we take public data, and this is the parcel map, and we actually correct the zoning boundaries. The city's stuff is all rough. We correct the parcel map, and we did that in an automated process, which I can tell you about more. We have machine-readable zoning rules. We created a data set for wide and narrow streets, which is really important for those of you guys working in New York. You know that this is one of the biggest issues for building your envelope. We have historic air rights transfers, which pretty much nobody has right now, an accurate analysis of your FAR, which you can use as the search property, but then actually then use it to mass out your building envelope. And I'm just gonna, one of the things that we did is look at how does the envelope data perform versus the public data. And so right now, the level of error that envelope has is very small. The Department of Finance, the error in their data set is really high. It's about 14%. The Department of City Planning is about 5%. This is on just lot area. If you look at potential FAR, it's even worse. The Department of Finance for residential properties is off around 20% of the time, 15% of the time for mixed uses and community facilities. Department of Planning is also off around the same. So our data is actually now more accurate than the data that comes from city planning or the Department of Finance. The total ZFA that you have, this is one of the most incredible part. The Department of Finance is off about 40%. So again, just showing you the power of building and creating your own data set. And really, this can mean a difference in New York City of close to $40 million worth of residential space. So it's a high difference. So spending the time to really accurately create this data set has really created a lot of value in this particular market. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I think this is amazing. We're seeing the future of site planning. There's no way we're going to go back and hire 10 lawyers and ask for all the permits and all the setbacks, and you can just use it like a Lego. I like the idea of Legos. I think real estate people like Legos for a reason. We saw some presentations yesterday. But let's move to the last but not least presenter, and completely different application, but I thought it was kind of interesting. And it's really about leisure and about experiences in a hotel and how we can use data also to track what the experience of the user is in that environment. Dagoberto Hernandez from Xcaret, Mexico.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And an honor to present an experience for us. Of course, we're going to talk about technology, but with one intention, which is to increase experience in our visitors. In order to talk about what Xcaret represents, because it is an abstract concept to understand, I would like to start with this video, and then I will back to introduce myself.
In a majestic paradise, live and feel all the folklore and traditions of Mexico, and immerse yourself in underground rivers, snorkel in a natural wonder, and discover an aquatic paradise. Soar through the air, feeling free, then descend to the interior of the earth. Brave the Mayan jungle, and make darkness your ally. Walk on sacred lands, great cities of kings, as suddenly time stops. Surround yourself with nature in a Mayan oasis and come alive with it. Enter into a fantastic world and discover how far you can take your senses. Sing, dance, laugh, and celebrate life. Love, history, your story, your adventure. This is the journey of your life. What are you waiting for?
Well, what you just saw right in this corner was the name of every single park that we run in Cancun and Mayan Riviera, which is located in Quintana Roo, only one state in Mexico. Xcaret, let me introduce myself. I'm the CIO for Xcaret Group, and I'm in charge of all the technology around the parks and the hotel and everything that is on the roadmap of the company. I used to be the CFO, so I'm an accountant. And I wanted to point out this because I'm not a technical guy. I'm not an engineer. What I just see is, I've been working with data all of my life, financial data, but also with value of the business and the companies. So it was very difficult for us to translate experience to value, because everybody understands, have a different understanding on what value is to increase an experience. But what you just saw here is only theme parks. I'm going to talk about the next steps of the roadmap. But what you have in theme parks is a lot of people. I mean, it's an amusement park having a lot of people, a lot of transactions, a lot of traffic and transit. But also you have nature that connects with people. So you don't see here Wi-Fi antennas. You don't see here wires. You just see trees, water, animals, spectacular dances and singers and everything. But you don't see any of technology because we're trying to connect nature with life experiences of our visitors. So I would like to present a second video because it was on our roadmap, but then suddenly the business model was transformed from one day to another. Can you please help me with the second video?
Have you ever dreamed of a world where nature is your guide? A tranquil place where everything flows. A haven that connects you with the nurturing landscape. Immersed in an authentic, deeply cultural experience. With a delightful cuisine prepared with love. A world inspired by the perfection of nature. Have you ever dreamed of a hotel with unique, sustainable experiences nestled among the best parks of Mexico, supported by a truly sustainable company, all of it included in a fun, inclusive program? That dream has come true. Hotel Xcaret, Mexico. The best of Mexico included. Opening December 2017, Riviera Maya, Mexico.
So basically, this hotel, which is the first phase of 5 different phases, up to 6,000 rooms, all in the same area, next to most of the parks that are located in Playa del Carmen. What this hotel brings is a new opportunity to know our customers and to be able to offer them a different experience. So Xcaret didn't want to open a hotel because Xcaret wanted to compete with other hotel chains. I mean, it's not the main purpose, but to offer the whole experience to our visitors. Xcaret receives 1/3 of the market of visitors to Cancun, and almost 10% of the visitors to Mexico. So probably you have visited one of the parks because we receive 1 of 10 tourists in one of them. So with this business, but let me try to explain this in other words. When you run a theme park, what you have is visitors that go to Mexico. For some reason, they want to spend vacations, but they find something to do, which is go to a park. So they go to a park when they are in Cancun. But when you are opening a hotel, you need to change your mind and your business model, because when you have a hotel, you need to get your visitor doing the reservation 6 months prior to the visit. So know when the visitor is in place. So what that represents is changing all the high-tech platforms that we use to perform transactions to reserve not only transportation, but hotel, but tours and visit to the parks. So what we foresaw was a tremendous opportunity to integrate systems, to integrate platforms, to integrate a whole new high-tech environment to the experience that is offered by our company. So thank you very much for having us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a beautiful day here in Boston, but I wouldn't mind being in Riviera Maya right now. I don't know about you. Well, thank you very much. We have time for some questions, and of course, there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of excitement about big data and smart buildings, and we saw some of real applications. Certainly there's no doubt that you're getting better service, valuable insights about customer and citizen behavior. But really, some of the challenges are in terms of monetizing and making sure that the investments in the technologies are actually financially sustainable. So what are your strategies to actually make money, monetize these technologies? What is your sales model? Who's your customer? How do you charge your customers? How much? And how you make sure that increases the bottom line, both for your customer and for yourselves. So in any order that you see fit. Maybe.
Well, we certainly, we use technology to drive operational efficiencies, first and foremost. So if we can lower the cost of energy, the cost of cleaning, the cost of labor, in many of our assets, traditionally we're a triple net environment. So a cost savings is a pass-through to the customer. And so if we can enable lower costs through use of efficiency, we get to ultimately deliver a better value to the customer. I think, and so that's a simple way of translating value and monetization. So the payback doesn't have to be significant. It does have to make some sense, because when we do something that involves an investment, so if we're investing in a fault detection platform, it has to have a payback, because ultimately, in some of our assets, we're recovering the cost of that investment in through the additional rent of the customer. So if we're using the customer's dollars, it has to make sense. So historically, we think about the returns and our yields. We have to be able to stretch a return that's reasonable. And so that return doesn't have to be 2-year payback, although in many cases using technology can have very rapid paybacks. We have to think about, is it a reasonable to get a 10-year payback? That's we operate on a yield where we're trying to get 5 to 7% returns. Perhaps leverage slightly higher, but ultimately, if we can deliver a similar type of a yield on use of technology and manage the risk side of it, our customers will be happier. So we use that. I think the other way is if we can take technology through things like personal control, ultimately the payback is around reputation. And reputation, at the end of the day, reputation is what helps enable us to attract and retain a customer. So it's not as straightforward, I do this technology and then I create a simple payback. But if I can ultimately keep a customer longer, raise the profile of Oxford Properties, or identify it as an investment that our customers make when they come into our building, that's great for us. You think about what it costs to fit out a law firm or a technology firm in a AAA office building. It could be hundreds of dollars per square foot. If you can't tell your customer that we're investing similar investments into our technologies that run the buildings, or the security, or the platform, I would challenge you to say, well, why would you come into that building?
Okay, so it's really about customer satisfaction and getting those customers back. How about you guys at SmartKey? How do you monetize this?
Absolutely. So one of our business basically is a ROI-based business. Essentially what that means is for us to make a sale or work with anyone, we need to provide repeatable, measurable value. One very simple example would be for the commercial real estate folks that we work with. Let's say you have a garage in downtown Boston, 1,000 spaces, making $5 to, let's say, $7 million a year. Lots of times you would allocate half of that space to tenants in the building, half open to the public. 500 spaces for the tenants, then lots of times people would oversell it for 600, 700 parking passes, which is normal, we all do that. But what people wouldn't know is you could actually upsell, you may have the potential to upsell it to all the way to 900, 1,000 passes, which could be good money to make at the same time, good customer satisfaction, because when it comes to lease arrangements, lots of tenants would want more spaces or more passes for their employees and visitors. Without data, it's extremely difficult to understand what is the activity and what is the capacity. And what we've done is we built this module, shortened the normally 3-4 weeks of analysis process, where you may have to pull reports from all the hardware equipment and crunch numbers on an Excel spreadsheet into 3 clicks. You just put in the numbers of total number of card holders, and our system captured all the activity automatically. And that is immediate ROI, and lots of times it's directly pays back multiple times that investment.
So it's you're a service provider, you provide the service and you reduce the cost. Sarah, who's your customer?
Yeah, I mean, our customers are real estate developers, but one of the things that this makes me think about is brokers. We have a lot of real estate brokers that use our software, and they are the people that are returning again and again. The service is based on, you can have a subscription service, which gives you keys to unlock multiple buildings, or you can unlock one key or two keys. The brokers are the ones that typically do the subscription services because they want to tell a client what can be built on the site, but what can be built across the site or across the street, so they can tell what a potential view blockage might be. But the other way that we protect our data, I think, in a way, is that the city is constantly changing zoning, and we've created automated code so that when they do those new zoning releases, that gets sucked into our system. It's automatically processed, and then we can have it out within 24 hours. So that's why. How do we keep the zoning code fresh in a way, and have our customers keep coming back as some of the back end coding that we did to automate processes, and then those processes are scalable to other cities. So we hope to go to other cities as well.
Dagoberto, I know that you're really about customer satisfaction. Can you tell us how you use the bands? I know your customers are wearing bands and you use that information.
Sure.
How do you follow that satisfaction, how they use the facilities?
Sure. Well, first of all, I would like to add something that has already been told regarding the value or the return of investment of technology. I believe that there's a huge mistake in how we foresee the technology or how we measure the return of investment, because we always see the return on efficiencies, sales increase, reduce cost, etc., which of course it has its own value. But why, if we ask ourselves, what's the risk of not having this innovation in our business model? And once you're able to see, to determine or give a value on that, the return of investment is immediate. Because especially the persons that dedicate ourselves to IT, we try to present, real good numbers to the board, saying it's going to help us, it's going to innovate, it's going to increase sales, etc. But no, it's not the same thing. Are we going to still be in business in 2 or 3 or 5 years if we do not innovate on this? And that's the real question to increase value, because back in time, probably IT was only a platform to run business. But now IT is one of the key elements to offer value to our customers. So what we offer in the Greaseband is not the Greaseband per se. I mean, we are tagging people. If we could insert a chip under the skin, we would do that. But since we are not able to do that, we need to tag our customers since they are getting off the plane in Cancun, going to the hotel or going to the parks during the whole stay, because we need to know who are their related, their kids, where are they're staying. We also tag the luggage. We tag everything we can. But it's not the Greaseband. The magic relies on the platform and how that platform integrates, because we haven't been able to develop one single platform for ourselves. We rely on third parties as well. And we try to connect the best of breed, the best of the different offerings to build a whole strong platform for our business. So that's an identifier only.
Okay, so it's interesting to know when you go to shop, you're monitored. When we go into a property in the Caribbean, you probably also monitor.
You can open the door, you can take your pictures, we can pay in the hotel or in the parks, you can get into the bus, you can, everything. Actually, we run a photo system. Also, we use facial recognition in some areas, because if you're wearing a mask or no, it's kind of difficult, but we use that. But we also use the wristband. So it's not only for photo, but we create an experience. If you don't want to buy the photos, don't buy them. But once you open your room, open the door, the TV turns on, and you are looking to the photos that you took of yourself or your family in Explore or Xcaret or Xelha, immediately as you are opening that's experience. And that's what we offer as a part of the warmth that we offer in our experience.
Albert, I saw a speaker recently who said the role of technology is to take technology out of technology.
Right.
So if we can use intelligence and data to simplify so many things for us, then that experience of the hotel guest ultimately is a much better experience. And from your perspective, maybe they will buy a photograph. Maybe they will stay longer. I mean, we ultimately have to do something useful with technology and understanding that it isn't just content. It has to be more than just a discount. You have to be able to give the customer something meaningful, because there are competitors in our world, and competitors to shopping, competitors to our office spaces, competitors to our hotels. And they're meaningful competitors, and they're using technology in ways that we didn't think about. And we've got to be able to do that. So there isn't a choice today. You have to embrace technology.
And what if you said they're going to buy the photos? And what if you change your mind and said, we're going to offer for free the photos when you are at the hotel? And we increase the rate, of course. But who else is offering that? Nobody. So that's increasing value to the business.
It's fantastic as a convenience, not having to walk with a wallet on you all the time and have all the access. It is fantastic. So let me tell you, there's a bit of discussion about what's this kind of new data, what is the impact on the spaces? So maybe I start with Wen, and what do you think is happening with parkings and parking spaces, with not only what you guys do in terms of data, but also automated vehicles and the Ubers and shared ride services. So what's your view about the use of space itself?
I'm sorry, can you say the use of the...
Of the parking space, what's the impact of this big data revolution and automation revolution
Absolutely.
on the use of space?
Yeah, so what we've observed is these days there are lots of both, I'd say, certain fear or kind of feeling of uncertainty when it comes to day-to-day operations for the parking business, because some of the areas, for example, nightlife area or so, the parking locations actually, the revenue get hit negatively, significantly when ride shares come in and all that. And when autonomous vehicle technologies are being publicized everywhere, folks in the industry, they're turtling around. They don't know what to expect, and they have this fear. So on the other hand, when it comes to real estate, from product management to development to investment, everybody's thinking about 5-10 years later what to expect, but really not sure, because the technology in that world is not fully developed yet. So those are some of the observations we've got. So what we've been encouraging people to do is we're all quite good at picturing what ultimate picture is in the world. We all know that, okay, in future the cars are driving themselves, we don't have to do a lot of things, but we're not so good at predicting the timeline of how we actually connect the dots from today over there. So what we've been encouraging, no matter parking professionals or real estate professionals, to start doing is really to start getting the basics together first. Essentially digitize your own operations from the day-to-day perspective. Moving yourselves out of the, let's say, very conventional paper-based kinds of operations, get efficiency gain, get potential revenue gain first, and then over time, prepare your infrastructure for the potential future picture. So then, no matter when it happens, you're prepared versus just doing the business reactively.
Thank you. Lachlan, have you seen changes in the use of office space or behavior of users?
Absolutely. I mean, we certainly see, the pressures around flexibility is something that puts a pressure on a traditional environment, which is used to doing 5- and 10-year leases. There are going to always be customers who are going to need flexibility, and that flexibility is because the nature of their business grows rapidly, or they need the collaboration space to be able to deliver that. So how we adapt technology to facilitate that is going to be very important. I think the space that we're not tapping into commercially into the office world is is the true conversation between the landlord and the tenant. And so although we have great conversations with our customers about their space needs and their vision for their space and how we give them service, what we're not seeing is the sharing of data across the landlord systems and the tenant systems. And so, I have sensors and data that can speak to utilization of space, but I'm not sharing that with my customer yet, not in a meaningful way. And so if I start to shift that conversation in the office world, I can start to say that, did you know that this section of your building, for instance, finds that they prefer the temperature much cooler, and this section likes it hotter, and this is the south-facing part of the building. Would you be, have you thought of moving some of your people to facilitate the nature of the building as well? Or not only can we give you control, but we can also help you utilize your space better. So I think that in the office space, we're going to have to figure out a much more collaborative environment between occupiers and landlords. In the retail space, our challenges are how do we deliver an experience? Because the reality is if you can buy a product cheaper, more efficiently through Amazon or Alibaba or other processes, then my 1.5 million square feet super regional shopping center becomes less productive. And so I'm going to have to find a way to make money on that. And if I can do that through services or through experiences or differentiate based on brands and use technology to assemble customers better that meet your needs, then that's a great way to use technology.
So Sarah, how do you think the development process is going to change with your innovation in such?
I hope that people can make really smarter decisions, but I think one thing that we've been able to do is visualize a lot of the untapped value in the market, kind of these development rights that people aren't tapping into. So the air rights, parcels that are underdeveloped can be visualized on the scale of the city all at once. So it's a different opening up space that exists in a way, or allowing people to see it.
So Dagoberto, how is the customer experience you feel changed, and how the customers are enjoying more their space?
Absolutely. There are some areas of the parks, especially of Xcaret, that we detect that the visitor doesn't spend time there or actually didn't go there during its visit. So what we do is we read that, we maximize the investment that is being held in some area, let's say at the aquarium. So what we use is we detect which visitors went to the aquarium. And when they are back, because we know when they are back with us, we can offer them a discounted price to go and then know the aquarium or any of the areas. So what we do is maximize. But we do not only do that with some of these areas. We have restaurants. We serve like 25,000 plates in a day in the different restaurants of all of the parks. So sometimes some of these restaurants are full. Some are empty. So we read that, and in order to provide a better experience, we canalize visitors to that restaurant.
That's amazing. Alas, we run out of time, but this is fantastic. 4 amazing case studies, I think, best in business practices. Thank you very much to our speakers.